My name is Ethan. I am 27 years old and a second-year medical resident. I worked incredibly hard to get here, overcoming countless obstacles to pursue my lifelong dream of becoming a doctor. When urgent calls came from my parents about possibly losing their home, I was confused but willing to help. Little did I know that my brother Marcus, the golden child of our family, was hiding a devastating secret behind his failed restaurant. Before I share how my investigation uncovered a shocking betrayal, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if family betrayal stories resonate with you. I grew up in a modest but comfortable middle-class home in suburban Michigan. From the beginning, it was clear to everyone that Marcus, my older brother by 3 years, was the favorite child. While I always tried to convince myself that my parents loved us equally, their actions consistently proved otherwise. Marcus was everything parents seemed to dream of: athletic, popular, and charismatic. He was the star quarterback on our high school football team, dated the prettiest girls, and had this natural ability to light up any room he entered. Everyone gravitated toward him, including our parents. They never missed a single one of his games, cheering from the stands with custom-made shirts bearing his jersey number. I, on the other hand, was the quiet, academically focused son. While Marcus was scoring touchdowns, I was winning science competitions and acing advanced placement exams. The difference was my parents rarely showed up for my academic competitions or award ceremonies. There was always some excuse. Dad had to work, Mom was not feeling well, or something urgent came up. The few times they did attend, they seemed distracted, checking their watches frequently, as if they had somewhere more important to be. One memory that perfectly captures our family dynamic was our high school graduation. Marcus graduated 3 years before me, and our parents threw him an extravagant party with practically the entire town in attendance. His graduation gift: a brand new Ford Mustang with custom leather interior. When my graduation came around, we had a small dinner with just the immediate family, and I received a watch. It was a nice watch, but the message was clear: Marcus deserved extravagance, while I should be content with practicality. Despite the obvious favoritism, I never gave up on my dream of becoming a doctor. If anything, it fueled my determination. While my parents financially supported Marcus through his numerous failed attempts at college, I worked 2, sometimes 3 part-time jobs throughout my undergraduate years to pay for my education. I waited tables, tutored high school students, and worked overnight shifts at a gas station while maintaining a nearly perfect GPA. When the acceptance letter from medical school arrived, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. I called my parents immediately, hoping for the excitement and pride I had always craved from them. My mom said, "That is nice, honey," before quickly changing the subject to tell me about Marcus's new business idea, opening a trendy restaurant in our hometown. My father's response was not much better. "Medical school is expensive. Are you sure you want to take on that much debt?" Meanwhile, Marcus had been bouncing between various hospitality jobs after dropping out of college twice. He had worked as a bartender, server, and assistant manager at several local restaurants, never staying anywhere longer than a year. His charisma made him good at these jobs, but his lack of discipline always resulted in him quitting or getting fired. Despite this pattern, when he announced he wanted to open his own restaurant, my parents were ecstatic. "Marcus has such a vision," my mother would gush over the phone. "He knows exactly what this town needs." What the town apparently needed was yet another farm-to-table concept restaurant with industrial decor and overpriced cocktails. But the most shocking part: my parents remortgaged their home, the house they had nearly paid off after 30 years, to provide Marcus with $150,000 in startup costs. When I expressed my concerns about this massive financial risk, my father dismissed me. "You have always been too cautious, Ethan. Sometimes you have to take risks to make money. Marcus has a real head for business." I bit my tongue to avoid pointing out that Marcus had never successfully run anything, let alone a notoriously difficult business like a restaurant. The grand opening of Harvest Table was treated like a royal coronation. My parents invited everyone they knew, spent thousands on catering, ironically from another restaurant since Marcus's kitchen was not ready, and proudly introduced their son as the restaurateur to anyone who would listen. I took time off from my studies to attend, watching from the corner as Marcus soaked up the adoration, my parents beaming beside him. I smiled and congratulated him, genuinely hoping he would succeed despite my reservations. When a distant aunt asked about my medical school acceptance during the party, my mother interjected, "Let us focus on Marcus's big night. We can talk about Ethan another time." As I drove back to medical school the next day, I could not shake the feeling that no achievement of mine would ever measure up to whatever Marcus decided to do. Little did I know that this dynamic would soon reach a breaking point that would change our family forever. Medical school was everything I had imagined and more: challenging, exhausting, and incredibly rewarding. While most of my classmates had families supporting them emotionally and often financially, I was on my own. The grueling schedule of 18-hour study days, practical exams, and clinical rotations left little time for sleep, let alone maintaining relationships outside of medicine. My student debt climbed into the six figures, but I saw it as an investment in the future I had always dreamed of. What surprised me most about medical school was finding people who valued what I had to offer. I formed close friendships with fellow students who understood the sacrifices we were making. We quizzed each other until dawn, shared sparse apartments to save on rent, and celebrated each small victory along the way. They became the family I had always wanted. People who noticed my hard work, appreciated my intelligence, and supported my ambitions without comparing me to anyone else. During my second year, I met Jessica in the hospital cafeteria. She was a nursing student doing her clinical rotation in pediatrics, and we bonded over our mutual exhaustion and dark humor about medical training. Jessica was different from anyone I had ever met, fiercely independent, incredibly compassionate, and refreshingly direct. She did not hesitate to tell me when I was being too hard on myself, a habit developed from years of trying to earn my parents' approval. "You know you do not have to be perfect, right?" she asked me one night when I was beating myself up over scoring only 93% on a pathology exam. "The patients will not care if you were top of your class or just passed. They will care that you listen to them and know how to help." Our relationship grew despite our chaotic schedules. We understood each other's dedication to medicine and the demands of our training. When I could not see her for 3 weeks during board exam preparation, she left encouraging notes in my textbooks. When she worked overnight shifts, I would drop off her favorite coffee before my morning classes. It was not the romantic relationship portrayed in movies, but it was exactly what we both needed. Meanwhile, Marcus's restaurant was apparently thriving, at least according to my parents' reports during our brief phone conversations. "The mayor eats there every week," my mother boasted. "Marcus is thinking about expanding to a second location," my father added. "He is really making us proud." The unspoken comparison hung in the air as it always had. Despite the distance and their clear preference for Marcus, I still wanted my parents' approval. When I successfully matched into my preferred residency program in internal medicine, I invited them to my white coat ceremony, a significant milestone marking the transition from medical student to physician. To my surprise, they came. The white coat ceremony was solemn and meaningful. As the department chair draped the short white coat over my shoulders, I felt a surge of accomplishment and belonging. I had made it despite everything. When I found my parents afterward, I was hoping for acknowledgement of this achievement. Instead, my mother immediately launched into updates about Marcus's restaurant. The food critic from the regional paper gave Harvest Table 4 stars. "Marcus is thinking about creating a signature cocktail line to sell in stores. He always had such an entrepreneurial spirit." My father chimed in. "We should all go to dinner at Marcus's place tonight. You can see how amazing it is, and he can probably give us a family discount." He laughed at his own joke, while I forced a smile, the joy of my accomplishment fading quickly. The early days of residency tested me in ways I had not anticipated. The responsibility of caring for actual patients, making decisions that affected their health and sometimes their lives, was both terrifying and fulfilling. I worked 36-hour shifts, surviving on vending machine snacks and stolen naps in call rooms. There were moments of crushing doubt, like when I missed a diagnosis that an attending physician later caught, or when a patient deteriorated despite my best efforts. But there were also moments of incredible affirmation. I remember Mrs. Reynolds, an elderly woman admitted with pneumonia, who grabbed my hand before being discharged and said, "You listened to me when the other doctors just rushed through. That is what makes a good doctor." Or the time I correctly identified a rare complication in a post-surgical patient, potentially saving his life, earning a rare compliment from my notoriously critical attending physician. As my confidence in my medical skills grew, so did my relationship with Jessica. We moved in together at the start of my second year of residency, finding a small apartment halfway between my hospital and her nursing job. We talked tentatively about marriage after I completed residency, building a life centered around our shared passion for healthcare and understanding of its demands. My communication with my family remained distant, but regular. Monthly phone calls usually consisted of updates about Marcus's restaurant success and token questions about my studies, as my mother still called my medical training, despite my repeated explanations about the difference between medical school and residency. I tried to visit the restaurant a few times on my rare days off, hoping to reconnect with my brother, but Marcus was always too busy to talk for more than a few minutes, rushing between the kitchen and dining room with theatrical importance. "The restaurant business is demanding, Ethan," he would say, clapping me on the shoulder. Not everyone is cut out for this kind of pressure. The irony of this statement, coming from someone who had never experienced a 36-hour hospital shift, was not lost on me, but I let it go. Maintaining peace in the family had always been my role. Little did I know that beneath the surface of Marcus's apparent success, a crisis was brewing that would soon force me to choose between my medical career and my family's needs, or so I was led to believe. The call came at 2:15 in the morning, just as I was finally falling asleep after a grueling shift in the emergency department. My mother's voice was shaking so badly I could barely understand her through her sobs. "Mom, slow down." "What is happening?" I sat up in bed, immediately alert despite my exhaustion. Jessica stirred beside me, her eyes opening with concern. "We might lose the house," my mother finally managed to say clearly. "The bank. They are saying we have missed too many payments. They sent a foreclosure notice today." My mind reeled with confusion. My parents had always been financially stable, careful with money, and had nearly paid off their mortgage before remortgaging for Marcus's restaurant. How could they suddenly be facing foreclosure? "I do not understand. What happened to the restaurant? I thought it was doing well." My mother's crying intensified. "Marcus tried everything to save it, but it has been struggling for months. We have been helping him with emergency after emergency. Your father and I. We thought it would turn around." The next day, after barely sleeping, I called my father for a clearer explanation. His voice sounded hollow, defeated in a way I had never heard before. "The restaurant has been having cash flow problems," he explained vaguely. "We have put in another $60,000 beyond our initial investment, but it just seems to disappear. Now we have fallen behind on our own mortgage payments for the past 4 months." "Why didn't you tell me things were this bad?" I asked, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "We did not want to worry you with your busy schedule," he replied, though I suspected it had more to do with preserving the illusion of Marcus's success. "But now we are running out of options. The bank is giving us 90 days to catch up on payments before they begin foreclosure proceedings." Later that week, a family meeting was called over video chat. I joined from the hospital call room during a brief break in my shift. My parents sat close together on their living room couch, looking older and more tired than I had ever seen them. Marcus joined from what appeared to be his restaurant office, his usually perfectly styled hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. "The situation is dire," my father began, outlining exactly how much they owed to catch up on the mortgage. $47,000 in back payments, late fees, and penalties. "We have already cashed in our retirement accounts to help with the restaurant. There is nothing left." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. "I have tried everything. Cutting staff, changing the menu, happy hour promotions. Nothing is working. The restaurant industry is just so unpredictable." Then came the bombshell. My mother looked directly at me through the screen and said, "Ethan, we think you should take a leave of absence from your residency program. Just for a year or so. With your education, you could get a high-paying job in pharmaceutical sales or medical consulting, just until we save the house and get back on our feet." I stared at the screen in disbelief. "You want me to quit my residency? Do you have any idea what that would mean for my medical career?" Marcus jumped in before I could continue. "We have always supported your dream, Ethan. Now, it is your turn to help the family. I would do the same for you. I felt a surge of anger. Have you supported my dream? Really? And how exactly would you do the same for me when your business is failing? My father's face hardened. That is not fair, Ethan. Marcus has had some bad luck, but he has put everything into making his restaurant work. Something wasn't adding up. If the restaurant has been failing for months, why am I just hearing about this now? Last time we talked, Mom was telling me about plans for a second location. My parents exchanged glances, and Marcus quickly interjected, "We did not want to worry you. We thought we could turn things around." After the call ended, I sat in the sterile call room, feeling like I could not breathe. Jessica found me there an hour later, still staring at the wall. "They want me to quit my residency." I told her the words, feeling surreal as I spoke them. Apparently, Marcus's successful restaurant is failing, and they need me to get some corporate job to save their house. Jessica's brow furrowed. "That doesn't make sense. You said your brother was doing so well. How does a successful restaurant suddenly fail without warning?" "Exactly. And why would they hide it until reaching crisis point? Something feels off about this whole situation." Over the next week, the pressure intensified. Daily calls from my mother, increasingly desperate. Texts from my father with links to job openings for people with medical backgrounds. Even Marcus called, something he rarely did, to tell me about the strain this was putting on our parents and how we need to step up as sons. Jessica was the one who finally said what I had been thinking. "Ethan, you need to go home and see what is really going on. This all sounds suspicious. Why would they suddenly need such a specific amount? Why won't they give you detailed explanations about the restaurant's problems?" She was right. I requested a rare weekend off from my program director, citing a family emergency. 36 hours later, I was driving into my hometown, determined to uncover the truth before making any life-altering decisions about my medical career. I arrived at my parents' house Friday evening to find it in a state I had never seen before. Mail piled on the counter, unwashed dishes in the sink, and my usually meticulous mother in the same clothes she had slept in. The physical manifestation of their stress was undeniable, which only deepened my confusion. Whatever was happening, my parents genuinely believed they were in crisis. "I am so glad you are here," my mother said, hugging me tightly. "Have you given any thought to what we discussed? There is a pharmaceutical company in Chicago that is hiring medical liaisons. The salary is excellent. And a facturada. The salary is excellent. I want to understand the situation better first," I replied carefully. "I thought I would stop by the restaurant tonight, see how things are going there." No. My father nodded. "Good idea. Marcus will be glad to see you. Maybe you can offer some fresh perspective on how to turn things around." The restaurant was only about half full when I arrived at 7:30 prime dinner time on a Friday night. While that was not ideal for business, it certainly did not look like a failing establishment. The decor was stylish, the staff seemed professional, and the prices on the menu were definitely on the high end for our modest town. Marcus spotted me from across the dining room, and his face registered surprise before shifting into a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. He hurried over, giving me a backslapping hug that felt performative. "Ethan, did not expect to see you here. I thought you were coming tomorrow. Thought I would surprise you." "Looks nice in here," I commented, glancing around. "Decent crowd for a Friday." This is nothing," Marcus said quickly. "We should be packed with a waiting list. Costs in this industry are killer. Food, staff, utilities. We are barely breaking even on nights like this." Before I could ask more questions, a striking woman in a designer dress approached us. She had the kind of polished appearance that seemed out of place in our small Midwestern town. Expertly highlighted hair, flawless makeup, and what appeared to be a very expensive handbag. "Babe, the Hendersons are asking for that special bourbon we save for VIPs, she said to Marcus, then noticed me. "Oh, hello." "Amanda. This is my brother Ethan." The Dr. Marcus introduced us with an emphasis on my profession that felt strangely territorial. "Ethan, this is my girlfriend, Amanda." As we shook hands, I could not help but notice the large diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist and what appeared to be Christian Louboutin heels, the red bottoms unmistakable even to someone like me who knew little about women's fashion. "Marcus has told me so much about you," Amanda said with a smile that seemed genuine. "Medical residency sounds so intense. I do not know how you do it." Before I could respond, Marcus interjected, "Ethan was just leaving, right? We will catch up tomorrow when I am not in the Saturday prep rush. Lots to do here." Despite having just arrived, I found myself being steered toward the door by my brother's firm hand on my shoulder. "But I haven't even had dinner yet," I protested. "Trust me, you do not want to eat here tonight. New sous chef is still learning the menu. Come back next week." Marcus's tone was light, but his eyes conveyed a clear message: leave now. As I drove away from the restaurant, I called Brad, a high school friend, who now worked as a loan officer at the local bank. We had stayed in loose contact over the years, occasionally meeting for a beer when I was in town. "Hey man, in town for the weekend? Free for a quick drink." An hour later, we were sitting in a corner booth at a sports bar. After catching up on our lives, I casually steered the conversation toward local businesses. "So my brother's restaurant, Harvest Table, heard anything about how it is doing?" Brad shifted uncomfortably. "I probably should not say anything. I am worried about my parents," I said honestly. "They remortgaged their house for that place, and now they are saying they might lose it." Brad leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I cannot discuss specific accounts, but I will say this. I have seen your brother making some interesting banking choices lately. Large cash withdrawals multiple times a month. Not typical business practice for restaurant operations." This cryptic comment only fueled my suspicions. When I returned to my parents' house that night, I noticed a stack of mail on the desk in the guest room where I was staying. Among the bills and flyers was an envelope from Marcus's restaurant's bank. My parents had apparently been receiving some of the business mail at their home address. I knew I should not open someone else's mail, but my concern for my parents' well-being outweighed my hesitation. Inside was a bank statement for the restaurant's business account. What I saw confirmed my growing suspicions. Consistent cash withdrawals, $2,000 to $3,000 at a time, totaling over $8,000 for that month alone. The restaurant seemed to be generating decent revenue, but these unexplained cash withdrawals were creating a significant drain. Acting on a hunch, I pulled up Amanda's Instagram profile. Her account was public and filled with posts from the past 6 months, showcasing a lavish lifestyle, weekend trips to Chicago, shopping sprees at high-end boutiques, a brand new Audi convertible with a big red bow, and countless photos of expensive restaurant meals. One post from just 2 weeks ago showed her hand with a new Cartier watch, captioned, "Best boyfriend ever. He always knows how to make a bad day better." The next morning, I approached my mother in the kitchen. "Mom, has Marcus explained exactly why the restaurant is failing? Because from what I saw last night, they had a decent crowd." She avoided my eyes. "The restaurant business is complicated, Ethan. There are expenses you would not understand, like Amanda's new Cartier watch, or her Louboutin shoes, or the Audi he bought her 2 months ago." My mother's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" I showed her Amanda's Instagram posts. My mother's face paled as she scrolled through image after image of extravagant gifts and experiences, all time-stamped during the period when Marcus claimed the restaurant was struggling. "There must be an explanation," she whispered, but I could see doubt creeping into her expression. My father was more forthright when I showed him the same evidence later that day. "We have noticed Amanda's lifestyle," he admitted reluctantly. "But Marcus said she comes from a wealthy family, that her parents give her money." "And you believed that? Have you met her parents?" "No," he conceded. "They live in California, according to Marcus." I spent the rest of the day gathering more evidence. I staked out the restaurant that evening, watching from my parked car across the street. After closing, I followed Marcus to a high-end jewelry store in the next town over. Through the window, I watched him purchase something small and have it gift-wrapped, paying with what appeared to be a thick stack of cash from his pocket. Later, he met Amanda at an upscale cocktail bar, presenting her with the small package. Her delighted expression as she opened it to reveal what looked like diamond earrings was visible even from where I sat outside. I discreetly took photos with my phone, documenting everything. The final piece of my investigation came from an unexpected source. I contacted the restaurant's accountant, introducing myself as a family member, concerned about the business. The accountant was initially reluctant to share information, but when I mentioned my parents might lose their home, his professional reserve cracked. Off the record, he said the restaurant is actually profitable on paper. The business model is sound, and the revenue is strong for a place this size in this location. But there is a significant cash flow problem that I cannot account for within normal business expenses. I have raised these concerns with Marcus multiple times, but he always has explanations that do not quite add up. Armed with bank statements, social media evidence, photos, and the accountant's assessment, I knew it was time for a confrontation. The truth was now clear. Marcus had been systematically draining money from the restaurant to fund a lavish lifestyle for himself and Amanda, while our parents faced losing their home as a direct result of his deceit. Sunday morning, I texted Marcus my parents, and surprisingly, Amanda family meeting at Mom and Dad's house. 3 o'clock. Non-negotiable. Marcus immediately called me, but I let it go to voicemail. Whatever excuses or diversions he planned to use, I wanted them aired in front of everyone. I spent the morning organizing my evidence into a clear, undeniable presentation. Bank statements were highlighted to show the pattern of withdrawals. Screenshots of Amanda's social media posts were printed and arranged chronologically to align with the bank withdrawals. The accountant had even sent me an email summarizing his concerns in carefully worded professional language, which I also printed. My parents sat nervously in the living room as 3 o'clock approached. My mother kept smoothing her skirt, a nervous habit from my childhood. My father sat stoically, jaw clenched. Neither asked what the meeting was about, perhaps afraid of what they might learn. Marcus arrived 10 minutes late, storming through the door with obvious irritation. "What is this about, Ethan?" "I had to cancel a supplier meeting for this." "Sit down," I said calmly. "We will start when Amanda arrives." "Amanda? Why would you invite her to a family meeting?" Marcus demanded, a flash of panic crossing his face. "Because she is part of this," I replied simply. 5 uncomfortable minutes later, Amanda arrived, looking confused but perfectly put together in designer jeans and a silk blouse, the diamond tennis bracelet glinting on her wrist. "What is going on?" she asked, looking between us. "Marcus, you said this was just a quick family thing." "Everyone, please sit down." I began moving to stand in front of the television where I could face all of them. "I came home this weekend because our parents are about to lose their house, supposedly because your restaurant is failing, Marcus. But what I have discovered suggests a very different story." I laid out the bank statements, first pointing to the highlighted withdrawals. Cash withdrawals $2,000 to $3,000 at a time, totaling $40,000 over the past 6 months. None of these correspond with supplier payments or payroll according to the business records. Marcus's face flushed with anger. "You had no right to look at those statements. That is private business information. Private information that is directly affecting our parents' ability to keep their home," I countered. "Now let me show you where that money went." I laid out the printed screenshots of Amanda's social media posts, placing them in chronological order. New Audi, February 10th, 3 days after a $5,000 cash withdrawal. Weekend at the Four Seasons, Chicago, March 22nd, 2 days after a $3,000 withdrawal. Cartier watch, April 15th, same day as a $4,000 withdrawal. I continued through the evidence, methodically watching Amanda's expression shift from confusion to shock. "Your restaurant is not failing due to market conditions or bad luck, Marcus. It is failing because you have been systematically draining it of cash to fund a lifestyle you cannot actually afford. Meanwhile, our parents are about to lose their home because they kept giving you money to save the business when in reality you were spending it on luxury items for your girlfriend." Marcus jumped to his feet, his face contorted with rage. "This is ridiculous. You have always been jealous of me, Ethan, always trying to make me look bad because Mom and Dad loved me more." "Marcus," my mother gasped, but he continued his tirade. "You could not stand that I was successful at something, that I built a business from scratch while you were still in school. So you come back here playing detective, going through private financial records, all to what, turn them against me." I remained calm, which seemed to infuriate him further. "I came back because our parents are about to be homeless, and you asked me to destroy my medical career to fix a problem you created. These are not accusations, Marcus. These are documented facts." I turned to the accountant's email next. Your own accountant confirms the restaurant should be profitable based on its revenue and standard expenses. The only unexplained variable is the cash withdrawals. As Marcus continued to rage and deny, the front door opened. Amanda had slipped out during the confrontation and returned with her designer handbag, now looking pale and unsettled. "Is it true?" she asked Marcus, her voice small. "Has your family been facing foreclosure while you bought me all these things?" Marcus faltered, looking between Amanda and our parents. "Babe, it is not like that. Ethan is twisting everything. Because I found these in your wallet when I went to get the car keys last week," Amanda interrupted, pulling out several overdue notices from the bank addressed to my parents. "You told me they were junk mail that got mixed up with yours. You said your restaurant was thriving and these gifts were just small tokens from your success." The room fell silent as Amanda turned to my parents. "I had no idea your house was at risk. Marcus told me your family was wealthy, that you had multiple properties and investments. He said the money for the gifts was his success bonus from the restaurant." My father stood up slowly, his face ashen. "You knew we remortgaged our home for your restaurant. You knew that was everything we had." The facade finally cracked. Marcus collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. "I did not mean for it to go this far. The restaurant was struggling at first, legitimately. But then it started to do better, and Amanda was so impressed with my success. So you lied to everyone I finished for him. You lied to Amanda about your wealth. You lied to our parents about the restaurant failing. You kept asking for more money while draining what they had already invested. I have always been the successful one," Marcus shouted suddenly, looking up with tears in his eyes. "The star. The one everyone admired. I could not let her see me as a failure. And once I started, I could not stop. Every gift had to be bigger than the last." Amanda shook her head in disbelief. "I never asked for any of this. I was with you before all the gifts, Marcus. I was with you because I loved you, not because of what you could buy me." My mother began to cry quietly, decades of belief in her golden child crumbling before her eyes. My father just looked defeated, the realization of their financial ruin at the hands of their favored son too much to process. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" I asked Marcus, finally allowing some of my anger to show. "You nearly destroyed our parents financially. You almost cost me my medical career with your selfish lies. Also, you could pretend to be something you are not." Marcus had no response. For perhaps the first time in his life, his charm and excuses had failed him. He stood up abruptly, grabbing his keys from the coffee table. "I need some air," he muttered, heading for the door. Amanda followed him, pausing at the threshold. "I cannot be part of this," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone in the room, before closing the door behind them. The silence they left behind was deafening. The truth was finally exposed, but the damage was done. My parents' home was still in jeopardy, and my brother's betrayal had shattered what remained of our family's foundation. After Marcus and Amanda left, a heavy silence filled the house. My mother sat motionless on the couch, tears streaming down her face. My father stood by the window, staring out at nothing in particular, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The evidence of Marcus's betrayal lay scattered across the coffee table: bank statements, social media printouts, and the damning email from the accountant. "I cannot believe he would do this to us," my mother finally whispered, her voice breaking. "All those times he came to us desperate for money to save the restaurant, saying he just needed a little more. He was buying her gifts with our mortgage money." My father turned from the window, his face showing every one of his 63 years. We were so blind. We wanted to believe in him so much that we ignored every warning sign. The pain in their expressions was unbearable. A mixture of heartbreak and humiliation. I felt a complex swirl of emotions. Vindication that my suspicions were confirmed, but also profound sadness for my parents. This was not how I wanted to be proven right. "I am so sorry," I said, sitting down beside my mother and taking her hand. "I know this is not easy to hear." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "No, Ethan. We are the ones who should be sorry. We have always." She trailed off, unable to finish. "You have always favored Marcus." I completed her thought gently. "It is okay. I have known that my whole life. This acknowledgement opened a floodgate. My mother broke down completely. Decades of favoritism finally confronted. We were terrible parents to you, she sobbed. We took you for granted because you were always so responsible, so self-sufficient. We poured everything into Marcus because he seemed to need it more, and we just assumed you would be fine on your own. My father joined us, sitting heavily in the armchair across from us. I saw myself in Marcus, he admitted quietly. The popular athlete I had been in high school. I lived vicariously through him, I suppose. It was easier than trying to understand your world of academics and medicine. I never understood your academic achievements, my mother confessed. I did not know how to support something so different from my own experience. But I was proud, Ethan. I just never knew how to show it properly. These confessions should have been healing, but they also reopened old wounds. Years of feeling second best of achievements overlooked, of support given to Marcus that was never offered to me. It all came rushing back. Do you know what it was like, I asked, my voice tight with emotion, to work 3 jobs, to put myself through undergraduate while you paid Marcus's rent even after he dropped out of college? To have you miss my white coat ceremony because Marcus had a soft opening at the restaurant to call home with news of matching into my residency program, only to hear about Marcus's new cocktail menu. My parents exchanged pained glances, the reality of their decades of favoritism finally sinking in. We failed you, my father said simply. There is no excuse for it. I was struggling with my own conflicting emotions when my phone buzzed. It was Jessica checking in. I had been texting her updates throughout the weekend. I need to make a call, I said, stepping onto the back porch for privacy. Jessica answered immediately. How did it go? Are you okay? I filled her in on the confrontation and its aftermath, my voice occasionally breaking as I recounted the painful family reckoning. I am coming there, she declared without hesitation. I can be there by tonight if I leave now. You do not have to do that, I protested weakly, though I desperately wanted her support. Yes, I do. You have been there for everyone else your entire life. Let someone be there for you now. 6 hours later, Jessica arrived. My parents welcomed her warmly, though the atmosphere in the house remained heavy with unresolved emotion. Having her there gave me strength I did not know I needed. While I had grown accustomed to handling family difficulties alone, her presence reminded me that I did not have to anymore. The next morning, we began developing a plan to address the financial crisis. The first step was clear: Marcus's restaurant needed to be sold or restructured immediately to stop the financial bleeding. The business itself is viable, I explained to my parents. The accountant confirmed that, without Marcus withdrawing cash for personal expenses, it could generate enough profit to help catch up on the mortgage payments. Jessica, whose organizational skills matched her compassion, helped create a spreadsheet outlining all the options. If we sell the restaurant outright, we could potentially pay off a significant portion of the mortgage arrears immediately. If we keep it but install new management, the monthly profits could help make payments while your parents find additional income sources. We were deep in discussion when the front door opened. Marcus walked in looking haggard and humbled, his usual confident demeanor notably absent. I want to talk, he announced. When he spotted Jessica, he hesitated. Privately. Jessica stays, I said firmly. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of her. He nodded reluctantly and sat down. I want to fix this, he began. I know I messed up, but if you just give me one more chance with the restaurant. No, I interrupted, surprised by my own firmness. There are no more chances, Marcus. You have lost that right. But they are my parents too, he protested, falling back on the familiar pattern of appealing to our parents directly. Mom, Dad, please. I know I can turn things around if you just trust me one more time. For the first time in our lives, my parents did not rush to his defense. My father shook his head. We cannot, son. We simply cannot. Marcus looked shocked, unaccustomed to being denied by our parents. So what, Ethan swoops in for one weekend, and suddenly he is making all the decisions. After everything you have done for me, you are just going to abandon me now. I could feel my temper rising, but Jessica placed a calming hand on my arm. This is not about abandonment, Marcus, I said as evenly as I could. This is about consequences. You lied to everyone. You nearly cost our parents their home. You need to take responsibility for once in your life. My mother, who had always been Marcus's staunchest defender, spoke up. Ethan is right. We love you, Marcus, but we cannot keep enabling behavior that hurts everyone, including yourself. The look of disbelief on Marcus's face would have been almost comical if the situation were not so serious. He had never faced unified opposition from our family before, especially with our parents siding with me instead of him. He tried several more angles, claiming Amanda had pressured him into buying expensive gifts, suggesting he had a spending addiction that required support rather than punishment, even threatening that he would be homeless if we took away the Graydon restaurant. Each attempt was met with firm but compassionate boundary setting, primarily led by me but supported by my parents in a way I had never experienced before. Finally, something seemed to break through. Marcus sat in silence for several minutes, then looked up with tears in his eyes. I really messed up, didn't I? Not just the money, but everything. Yes, I agreed, simply. But messing up does not mean you cannot make amends. Over the next few days, we developed a comprehensive plan. The restaurant would be placed under professional management temporarily, while we assessed whether to sell it or keep it as a family business. Marcus would begin therapy to address his compulsive spending and need for validation. Most importantly, he would get a regular job and contribute a significant portion of his income toward repaying our parents. Before returning to my residency program, I connected my parents with Richard, a financial advisor friend from medical school who specialized in helping families recover from financial crises. He will help you negotiate with the bank and create a sustainable repayment plan, I assured them. As Jessica and I prepared to leave, my parents pulled me aside for one final conversation. We know words are not enough, my father began, but we are truly sorry, Ethan. For all the years we overlooked your achievements and prioritized your brother's needs above yours. My mother added, we are so proud of the man you have become despite our failures as parents, and we are grateful beyond words for what you have done for us this week. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen by my parents. The acknowledgement was bittersweet, coming so late after so much hurt. But it was a beginning. As Jessica and I drove back to our apartment, I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and liberation. I never thought I would see the day when my parents would stand up to Marcus, I admitted, or when they would actually see me for who I am. Jessica squeezed my hand. Sometimes it takes a crisis to break old patterns. The question is, where do you all go from here? It was a question I would be contemplating for months to come. 6 months have passed since that fateful weekend when the truth about Marcus's deception came to light. So much has changed in such a short time. Some of it painful, but much of it healing, in ways I never expected. I am thriving in my residency program recently, receiving an award for exceptional patient care that recognized my ability to connect with patients during difficult diagnoses. The award ceremony was held in the hospital auditorium, nothing fancy, just a simple certificate and a handshake from the chief of medicine. But when I looked out into the audience, I saw my parents sitting in the front row, my mother dabbing tears from her eyes, my father nodding with unmistakable pride. They had driven 4 hours to be there, rearranging their work schedules without telling me in advance. We would not have missed it, my mother said afterward, hugging me tightly. Not for anything. The restaurant is under new management now, a professional with 20 years of experience whom Richard, the financial advisor, recommended. Surprisingly, Harvest Table has become profitable again, generating enough income to help my parents catch up on their mortgage payments. We decided not to sell it, at least not immediately, as the steady revenue stream has been crucial to their financial recovery. My parents' home is secure now. With the restaurant's profits their own income, and a renegotiated payment plan with the bank facilitated by Richard, they have managed to catch up on the arrears and are no longer facing foreclosure. The relief in my mother's voice when she called to tell me they had received confirmation from the bank was palpable. It feels like I can breathe again, she said. Marcus has undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation. The initial confrontation left him reeling his identity as the golden child shattered. Amanda did leave him unable to trust him, after discovering the extent of his lies. This could have sent him spiraling further, but instead it became a turning point. He has been in therapy weekly, working through his need for external validation and tendency toward compulsive spending. He found a job as an entry-level restaurant manager at a national chain, a humbling step down from restaurant owner, but one that came with valuable structure and accountability. Most importantly, he has been making regular payments to our parents, gradually repaying the money he squandered. The hardest part, he told me during a recent phone call, is facing who I really am without all the pretense. I spent so long trying to be the successful son that I never developed any real substance. Our relationship remains complicated. The hurt of his betrayal cannot be erased overnight, nor can my lifetime of feeling secondary in our family. But we are talking more honestly than we ever have before. There is a cautious rebuilding of trust, happening one honest conversation at a time. My relationship with Jessica has only strengthened through this ordeal. Seeing how she stood by me, offering unwavering support without taking over, reinforced what I already knew, that I had found someone truly exceptional. 2 months ago, I asked her to marry me at the small park where we had our first real date. Nothing elaborate, just the two of us at sunset with the simple platinum ring she had once mentioned liking when we passed a jewelry store window. "You know this means you are stuck with all my family drama forever," I warned as I knelt before her. She laughed through happy tears. "I would not have it any other way. Besides, your family is actually dealing with their issues now. That puts you ahead of most people." Perhaps the most profound change has been in my relationship with my parents. The painful conversations that began during that weekend have continued, gradually becoming easier but no less honest. They have apologized repeatedly for their favoritism, and while those words cannot erase the past, their actions have begun to show real change. My father called last month just to ask about a difficult case I had mentioned in passing during our previous conversation. He had remembered the details and wanted to know the outcome. My mother has started sending care packages to Jessica and me with homemade cookies and practical items for our apartment. Small gestures, but meaningful ones that show they are paying attention to our actual lives rather than comparing them to some ideal. During their last visit, my father said something that stayed with me. We were washing dishes together after dinner. A companionable silence between us when he suddenly spoke. "I spent so many years measuring success by the wrong standards," he said, his eyes on the plate in his hands. "Popularity, charm, external achievements. Those were the things I valued in Marcus because they were what I had valued in myself as a young man. I completely missed the depth of character, the integrity, the quiet determination you showed every day. I missed the true measures of a man." He looked up at me, then his eyes damp. "I am sorry it took a crisis for me to see you clearly, son. But I want you to know that I do see you now, and I am in awe of the person you are." These words, which I had longed to hear for decades, filled a space inside me that had been empty for too long. The healing is still ongoing, but moments like these are powerful medicine. This ordeal has taught me lessons I never expected to learn. About conditional versus unconditional love. About the courage it takes to set boundaries with family, even when every instinct tells you to keep the peace. About how facing painful truths while excruciating in the moment is the only path to authentic relationships. I have learned that success is not measured by others' approval, and that the liberation that comes from breaking free of the need for validation, especially parental validation, is worth the pain of the journey. I have discovered that integrity matters more than appearance, and that sometimes the people who seem to have everything are the ones carrying the heaviest burdens of pretense. Most importantly, I have learned that forgiveness is not a single act, but a process that unfolds differently for everyone involved. I am still working on forgiving Marcus completely. My parents are working on forgiving themselves. We are all learning to build something new from the rubble of what was broken. To those of you watching who might be struggling with family expectations or feeling overlooked while someone else gets all the attention, I see you. Your worth is not determined by your family's ability to recognize it. Stand firm in your truth even when it would be easier to sacrifice it for harmony. Have you ever had to confront a painful family truth? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else feeling alone in their struggle. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding strength through difficult family situations. And remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most meaningful growth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on yours.